The Packers continue to rise to the TOP top in more ways than one. I spy with my green and yellow eyes a number 87 on the field. Plus, we look ahead to a long road trip, starting with the 49ers, coming up next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
Hey, Packers fans, this is your unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, and these are the podcasters you're looking for. One of these guys has been to the birthplace of Curly Lambeau, and the other guy, well, he has too. And now it's time to go, Pack, go, with your hosts, Wayne Henderson and Troy Heinritz.
Thanks for joining us on the unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, the show by and for fans like you of your 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. Call the Packers Fan Podcast hotline, our new number, area code 920-3PACK-GO, or simply visit packersfanpodcast.com/feedback to be part of the show. Let your voice be heard. We want to hear from you and share it with the rest of the Packers fans. This is episode 108 of your Packers Fan Podcast, recorded August 23rd, 2016, and all of the intel and the analysis from this edition can be found at packersfanpodcast.com/108.
On this episode, we're going to be sharing the highlights and lowlights from the win over the Raiders. Also talk about some updates regarding the PED scandal and share some insights into the punting competition.
It carries on a little bit further. We're also going to share the latest injury news, plus look ahead to the preseason game in Frisco against the hated 49ers, at least by me, anyway. Okay, it's unanimous. But I'm at Wayne Henderson, your voice acting, podcasting, part owner of the Green Bay Packers.
And I am at Troy Heinritz, also your part owner of your Green Bay Packers. And I have to say, just a quick note about the 49ers, that I was in San Francisco. And when I was in San Francisco, I stayed in a hotel, which literally had a window facing the street corner. And at, of course, 10 o'clock at night, someone decided to have a drum session on the street corner. I came downstairs.
Nice.
And guess what? What? They were wearing Packers jerseys.
Serious?
Seriously. How could you be like bad at those guys? I'm like, okay, you can play for at least a half an hour.
Yeah, we'll
but I do got to go to bed. Just a reminder that the Packers Fan Podcast is a proud member of the SPNT.TV Sports Podcast Network and is now on the go with our free Packers Fan Podcast apps for both iOS and Android, presented by theticketking.com. Remember, you're not sold out until the king is sold out. Get Packers tickets at the best prices by visiting packersfanpodcast.com/tickets for details.
Also, we would love it if you would become a Packers Fan Podcast Patreon supporter. Number one, it helps us grow the show by bringing you more great content each week, but you can also get a really cool reward for yourself as well. Check out all the different levels by visiting packersfanpodcast.com/support. There's even a chance for you to go to a game at Lambeau Field during the 2017 season with Sir Troy Heinritz. Again,
That's me.
That's him. packersfanpodcast.com/support for all the details. And, one of the things we'd like to do with more of your support would be some fun things like live post-game call-in shows, things like that, but you also get rewards. So check it out. See if there's a way you can help us out.
You know what, Wayne? I thought Ryan did such an excellent job kicking off the show last week. I think we should go to Ryan again to start the show this week.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and get him on the line.
Hey, guys. This is Ryan from Chico, California, calling again. I have a direct question talking about Johnny the Rocket Crockett. So I've liked him ever since I started seeing him. It was the Hail Mary game. He started kind of rejuvenizing the offense with his fast legs and go-get-him attitude. But my question is, with knowing how talented he is, obviously we don't know as much as the coaches do, but looking at him, he is talented. He's fast. He can catch the ball. He sees spots in the O-line to run through. My biggest question is, why re-sign James Starks? He's older. He's getting to the point where he kind of fumbles. He fumbled a good amount last year. I'm just curious, why re-sign Starks, especially for the amount that we did? If I looked at it right, I believe we could have signed Matt Forte for the amount of money that we signed James Starks. And Matt Forte is obviously better. But so my question is, why re-sign him? And do you think there's any chance that maybe they try to trade Starks? Maybe they just flat out cut him? Because quite frankly, I'm starting to think that Starks is the better talent. I mean, not Starks. Crockett's the better talent. I would love to see Crockett on the field as much as possible in the regular season, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on how you think that'll happen if we continue to keep Starks in the offense. Thanks, and go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go indeed. Ryan and Chico, AR-12's old stomping grounds. Troy, I'm going to let you field this one because you are in the know with these kind of details. What do you think?
Oh, I'm so glad when people talk about James Starks. Just a quick reminder. Okay, these are the reasons why they signed Starks last year. Number one, 2015 leader in yards from scrimmage with 993. Well, that's not saying a lot, being that we had a very sluggish offense last year, but he was the offensive yards from scrimmage leader, so keep that in mind. Also, his catch percentage in 2015, that's catches divided by targets. Starks is second on the team in 2015 with 81.1%. The only person that had a better catch to target ratio was one, Justin Perillo, who obviously catches everything that's thrown his way this preseason.
Wow, and I've never even heard of that type of stat before.
Yes, catch percentage. That's catches divided by targets.
Those are not the names I would have guessed to be at the top last year.
Right, so if you're throwing at once and you caught the ball, that's 100%. If you throw on the ball twice and you only caught one of the two, you have a 50% catch percentage for those that can't do math at home. And also remember the yak. No, not the animal. Yak, yards after contact. Starks had the highest percentage of 10-plus yard gains after initial contact. So when he runs hard.
Nice.
Okay, now, these are the points against Starks. Yes, 5 fumbles last year was a lot, but it's coachable. It's correctable. I mean, Aaron had 8 fumbles last year, and Lacey had 4. So are you going to cut those guys just because they fumble the ball a lot? And yes, Starks is going to be 31 years of age, so he is getting up there, hence why we have to see what Crockett can do, because Starks will not be around forever. So obviously Crockett would be the next logical number 2 behind Lacey as things move forward. The big thing, though, is that his contract actually puts him in a pay scale that's equal to that of Justin Forsett from the Ravens. And the way the Packers structured the $6 million deal over the 2-year period is that if Starks doesn't perform above last year's numbers and decides to go a different direction, then they're not on the hook for his 2017 $3 million against the cap. So signing him for $6 million might look like it's a lot of money, but really it's a $3 million 1 year, $3 million second year kind of structured deal. So if he does not perform and Crockett does perform better, they can get rid of him at the end of the season, because what you really have to remember is that when they signed the deal, we still didn't know what Eddie's performance was going to be like coming into the season. Is he going to make the weight? Is he going to bring it down? Is he going to run like his first season? Those are all questions that Ted and company probably were asking. So why not have at least Crockett and Starks be there for a 1-2 punch? And then if Lacey's there and he makes the weight and all that good stuff, you got a 3-headed monster that's just unstoppable, which we're already seeing with the 3-back set here in preseason with the 35-minute time of possession, TOP, if you caught my note from the top of the show, which obviously is winning ball games.
I know you've touched on that last week, Troy, and it's rolling on. Preseason, sure, and like you said, Starks, pros and cons, but I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons. It just makes perfect sense the way you laid it out there. Sure, we don't want any fumbles, or at least not as many as last year, but like you said, coachable. When he does run, it's pretty fun to watch.
It absolutely was, especially this past week. So with that, let's talk about some highlights, Sir Wayne.
Yes, I mean, I touched on this a bit last week as well. As far as preseason games go, they've been really exciting, except for that injury thing.
Yes. Hundley did not lose a step. That's wrong. Sorry. Hundley did not regress in his sophomore performance, putting up a 101 QB rating. No touchdown passes, but hey, when you're running the ball like we are, you don't really need to throw any.
It was so good to see that he was able to show up, recover from that ankle injury, do really well, some exciting plays. He looks more advanced than just a second-year guy on the Packers. and then re-injured that same ankle, and we'll touch on that a little bit later, but that was kind of heartbreaking, but it did give the other guys a chance to come in and try to keep the ball rolling, so to speak.
Yeah, and the running game, I think, is where the highlight was against the Raiders. This was just absolutely ridiculous on how this all broke down. So we had Eddie Lacy, who was just running like crazy pants in this game. I mean, that jump into the end zone, I think I heard you yell, not just tweet, but yell all the way from California.
I yelled at the TV, one, because we got a touchdown, two, because the way that Eddie Lacy crowd surfed on top of the other players to get into the end zone just got me amped up, pumped up, and it was great to see Eddie making spectacular touchdowns. Yes, preseason, but still, it was fun, and I was so excited. I'm not surprised you heard me in Chicago.
Now, let's be clear. I mean, he did go backwards a little bit from the first game last week because he did only have 5 yards of carry instead of 6. So, I mean...
Only 5 yards per carry. That still will get you a first down on average every time.
Yes, it will. And when you break
series.
down these runners, Lacy, 20-yard, he had a 20-yard run for his long. Crockett had a 10-yarder. Starks had a 24-yarder. And Burks had a 15-yarder. So, I mean, this is pretty phenomenal stuff here we're talking about.
Yes, especially when you think of the Packers ever since the Brett Favre era. Not much of a running team. You know, we've had some great runners, but mostly you think of us as long bomb touchdown passes. And of course, we definitely want to see a lot of those this year as well. But knowing that we can have this on the field and give some relief and some balance and keep other defenses kind of guessing as to what we might do, it's just got me all sorts of giddy.
Well, let's look at it again here, right? Crockett gets the second touchdown.
Yeah.
So that's 2 for him. And when you look at the entire running back core, we have 145 yards. 145 yards on the ground. That's amazing.
Yes.
But more importantly, the top 3 running backs, Lacy, Starks, and Crockett, that 3 musketeer trio combo, whatever you want to call them, 97 yards on 21 carries. So again, that's very close to that 5 yards per carry average. That is amazing.
And Lacy, Starks, and Crockett almost sounds like a law firm, but I prefer that they carry the football for first downs.
I'm going to get that on a shirt.
I know a guy that'll create some shirts for us.
Absolutely. But the reason why these runners are doing as well as they are is the offensive line and the blocking downfield. It's not just about hitting the hole. It's about having the next layer and the blocker in front of you. And I think the runners are being very patient. They're waiting for the holes to open. They're waiting for the scheme to develop. And they're able to get that second level blocker, which is getting out these larger runs, not to mention the yards after contact. So I think we're going to see some really big things if that offensive line really does stick together this season.
And on the other side of the ball, how about Demarius Randall's interception? That was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, he might have gotten burned in the first game, but this totally made up for it. He is back in true form. I'm going to be excited to see what he does against these 49er receivers.
Yeah, and last week, I know it wasn't Demarius last week, but we've had 2 weeks in a row with spectacular interceptions. If we can keep that up, that's just another feather in the cap that's going to be great to watch. And as usual, Mason Crosby is money in the field goal kicking department.
Yep, it just keeps racking up points, one after the other. But I think the best thing that came out of the game last week was this quote from Adam Sheen of CBS Sports, who said, and I quote, "The Packers will have the best, most explosive offense in the NFL."
Wow. I mean, that, the way he phrased it, just, it puts visions in your head. Oh, Adam, thank you for believing in the Packers, because I think he's onto something, don't you?
Oh, let's be clear. No Rodgers yet this preseason. No Jordy yet this preseason. We got a lot to look at yet this preseason before we even get to opening day down in Jacksonville. I am really excited to see what's going to happen in this 49ers matchup this week.
Yeah, because, you know, we've had the two home games in a row. Now we're going on the road for about a month. But yeah, that's where our middle will really be tested. And it wasn't all sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, and Pokemon this week. There were some lowlights, you know, good and bad.
I hate to pick on Tim.
Poor Tim. He wasn't all bad.
He wasn't all bad. He had a really decent game, and he had a really great punt. He went 51 yards. But, I mean, this is just how sad it gets, right? Because he gets his 51-yard punt, and then Mortel comes in and kicks a 58-yarder right after that. And I believe it was Superfan Ryan who actually tweeted us during the game. He summed it up best, who said, Mortel can do everything Mastay can, but better.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, Tim. I know you're like the franchise leading in all these categories and you're a Packer for life, but it's kind of hard to argue with Mortel in these first two games. So this is where the punting competition really starts to take shape, because this week in practice, Ron Zook actually made changes to the way the punters took their reps, because normally they would have like equal time doing the same drills, right? You kick 3 times, I kick 3 times, et cetera, et cetera. But this week, on Monday, Mastay took all of the work, and then today, Tuesday, when we're recording the podcast, Mortel took all of the work. So I don't know if that has something to do with just see how they can do with a full load kind of situation. I thought that was really interesting. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because on the surface, it sounds about the same. Each one gets about half the work, but splitting it out where they get a full day's practice doing it, I don't know what it actually says, other than I think it really gives both men a chance to really get into a groove. If they know they're going to be doing, all the load that day in the punting department, they can really kind of focus and get into the groove. So I think it's kind of a win-win for whoever ends up being our punter, throughout the whole year or most of the year. Because obviously, unlike going with a 2 tight end set, we're not going to go out there with a 2 punter set on the same down.
Now, Zook will probably tell you that it's just because it's rest, right? Giving him the day off gives him a full day to heal, a full day to rest. It is the season after all. But I'm sure there's something bigger to the game plan.
Absolutely.
Now, Mastay had an average hang time of 4.47, with one actually hanging for over 5 seconds during the game. But that was with, remind you, no wind up there in Lambeau, and it was a very clear night. So the problem that you still have to remember is that Mastay's biggest opponent is consistency. That's where he falls short. And I found this nugget, which I thought was really interesting, that last year when Mendel was brought in to kind of goose Tim a little bit in order to get the punting competition going, Ted Thompson cut him on day 12.
And
guess how long Mortel's been around?
It's got to be more than 12. It seems like ages.
Yes, more than 12. Mortel has made it to day 21, people. So the punting competition is in full effect.
Yeah, it's definitely in play. And, the Packers, they want to be nice guys, but they do have to make a business decision that'll best help us win football games. And I believe it was Superfan Ryan who also on Twitter posted something about, okay, it's time to give Mortel the job. And another fan on Twitter commented back, what, you guys want to fire Mastay after one bad punt? How many bad punts have we seen over the past year or so?
2 seasons.
Yeah, it's more than just what he did in 1 or 2 preseason games this year. So maybe this will be, like you said, you used the expression, give him just the goose he needs. May the best man win, and may we have many punts well beyond 50-something yards.
Just remember, holder of the year.
I forgot about that, but I'm sure Aaron Rodgers remembers.
Yes. Oh, good stuff. All right, well, that'll wrap it up for the game against the Raiders. What injury news do we have coming out of there, Sir Wayne?
Well, on the plus side, not all that many Packers appear to be injured, so that's a blessing. However, like we touched on, Brett Hundley's ankle was re-injured on that play. He's likely not going to be back until preseason game 4, and I'm hoping that things come along that he can get some more reps and some more on-the-field experience in game 4. But right now, it's kind of up in the air, but don't look for him on the field throwing the football around in Frisco.
Yeah, and that was kind of a disappointment from week to week. So you had Callahan, who came in then with that opportunity with Hundley going down. You don't know if Hundley's going to be able to be strong enough to maybe even be that number 2 quarterback at that moment for the rest of the season, because he's had this nagging ankle injury. And I don't think Callahan really stepped up and took the reins like he did the first week. So I think maybe it was a little bit of a degradation in Callahan's play this week in this game. I don't know. What did you think of Callahan this week coming in and stepping in?
About the same as most of our number 3 quarterbacks of recent years. Serviceable. If heaven forbid something happens to Aaron Rodgers and Brett Hundley's not ready to go, he'll do okay. Luckily, like you mentioned earlier in the show, the offensive line seemed to be doing a pretty good job. I think that will help everybody, but I need to see more, and I guess that's why we have 2 more preseason games.
Yeah, he went from that 97 passer rating last week down to a 62.1. Not very accurate this week. 9 completions, 17 attempts.
But if he was playing baseball, he's so far above 500, he'd be like a legend.
That's right. He'd be making gazillions of dollars with a 62.1 batting average for sure.
Just trying to look on the bright side.
Well, in other news, Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers, after last week, have agreed to the PED interviews with NFL investigators. So that'll be Harrison, Peppers, Matthews, Neal, all will be participating in those PED interviews. And they're going to be, I guess, preserved. So that'll be like a court reporter type session.
That's what the Pro Football Talk article touched on. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes at PackersFanPodcast.com/108. In other words, don't look for it to be broadcast live on television as if it was some Kardashian event. But just to make sure everybody's comments are covered, a court reporter will likely have this down for posterity.
I'm excited to see what those conversations come out as, because everybody's still wondering, is this documentary true? Did they take performance-enhancing drugs? What's the deal? I just want to see him play because the defense was freaking awesome again this week without those two out there. Imagine what happens when they're in there.
I'm sitting here right now imagining what it would be like with them out there, and it's pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive indeed.
I don't know if this was surprising news to everybody, but to me it kind of caught me off guard that the Packers announced that J.C. Treader is going to be our opening day center.
I think that's really great news for JC personally. He's done a fantastic job, filling in there. I think that, Corey Linsley obviously is an issue. So this is great for us because I know they had Don Barkley in there at one point, didn't they, during the game at center? Did I see that right?
Yes. And I thought I was hearing or seeing things, but that's what they said.
So I think with everything that he did last year for us, I think JC getting the call, I think that's going to be a real big step up for us. Obviously, we wish Corey well. Hopefully, everything works out, and then we'll be back to going full steam. So, because it's great to have that 2 center rotation. Because center goes down, that's a big loss on that offensive line. He's the commander in chief and making sure that Aaron gets the ball,
which is the most important thing happening on every single offensive play. Oh, as we lead up to these final 2 preseason games. And then really looking forward to the regular season. We posted a Twitter poll yesterday afternoon on our Twitter account at PackersFanPod asking, although it's just preseason, how do you think your Packers will do in these 2 remaining games? And the results were kind of surprising. 52% of the Packers Fan Podcast listeners that responded believe that we are going to win both of these remaining preseason games. 41% think that we'll win one of them and lose the other one. And 7% of your Packers Fan Podcast community say the Packers will lose both games and not even care because preseason.
Well, any game is a game, and any game you play to win and you prepare. And so I think this week, if AR-12 is going to be on the field, it's a victory because the Niners just are not stacking up in this preseason the way we've been seeing the Packers play this preseason. So I hope that the 7% of you are completely wrong. Now, I agree with the 41% only because I think next week it is pretty much a throwaway game. It's literally let everybody play. That's the 4th and 5th round stringers so that they can get some time in and take an evaluation to see who's going to make that final 53. So, yes, I do think that just because of the nature of the 4th game of the preseason, the 41%ers might be the right answer here. Of course, I'd love to see them win both because then it's just fun.
Oh, absolutely. So let's dig into it. Packers at Niners. And before we dig into all the details, is it wrong that I kind of hope the Niners go 0-16 and set another NFL franchise record?
You just want that to happen so that your Los Angeles Rams can go 16 and not 16-0 because that'll be the Packers. But you want the Rams to make the playoffs so that the Packers can play the Rams in the playoffs and you could see it.
Right, but at the same time, I still would like the Packers to go totally undefeated through the Super Bowl. Go, Pack, go.
20-0, never been done. Would be awesome, wouldn't it?
We would be even more annoying to non-Packers fans than we are already, which is a good thing in my book.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, the Green Bay Packers organization, you've heard us mention it before, they put out this official document every week on the website called the Packers Dope Sheet, and they've been doing it for decades, breaking down the upcoming game. And we will have a link to this week's Dope Sheet in our show notes at PackersFanPodcast.com/108. And the headline basically says that the Packers will travel to Santa Clara, which isn't even really San Francisco.
Don't they have to change their name?
You would think they would, kind of like in baseball, the Los Angeles, California Angels of Anaheim or whatever they are. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing they're not the 49ers SC because that's like a soccer club then.
It's so confusing. But the Packers are going to take on the Niners at Levi's Stadium in the first preseason meeting between these two teams since 2008. And it'll be the Packers' second time playing at Levi's Stadium after a 17-3 win in week 4 of the regular season last year. Now, all time, Green Bay leads the regular season series over the Niners 31-27 and 1 tie. And we are 4-3 versus the Niners in the postseason. What do you think about that?
That's exactly where it matters, and I love it. No game is so awesome.
We gave them quite a few heartbreaking losses. Good times, good times. Green Bay has played the Niners 8 times since 2008, with 5 matchups coming during the regular season, 2 in the postseason, and 1 during the, preseason. And the Niners and Packers have met 4 times during the preseason, with Green Bay's only win coming at San Francisco in 1959, 24-17.
But let's go back to that, though. You said the Packers and Niners have met 4 times during preseason. The only win came when the Packers played in San Francisco. Fortuitous?
I think that's going to change the stats in just a few days.
You know it.
It's interesting that we're playing on a Friday night. And is it airing in your greater Chicago area?
Now that I have the Game Pass, I don't even bother to look. But sadly enough, I actually have gone back to cable for the first time in almost 10 years. So I now have the NFL Network again, so it might be on NFL Network.
Very, very cool. And since this is the second week in a row that the Packers are playing a team from California, even though Northern California is a long, long way away, it will be broadcast live in my area, so it'll make folks happy, and I'm sure that superfan Ryan in Chico will be watching it because that's not too far from Frisco. So it's going to be good stuff. Now, Friday does mark the first of 4 consecutive road games, 2 preseason and 2 regular season, before the Packers are back at Lambeau to host the Detroit Lions on September 25th. And as far as preseason goes, we are going to finish up against the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium, being coached by former Packers backup quarterback Doug Peterson, Thursday, September 1st.
I can't wait for that Detroit Lions game. It'll be the first game of the next 21-year run.
It's about time we start a long run like that yet again.
Sorry, I had to bring up that salt in the wound. Someone brought it up at work today, and I was like, oh, don't talk about it. The pivot game.
Oh, well, at least we did get revenge in Detroit with one of the greatest plays in the history of Lions-Packers games. And as far as the coaches go, Mike McCarthy, of course, he's now 112 wins, 62 losses, and 1 tie. That pesky tie, it's just going to be around forever, which includes an 8-7 record in the postseason. This is his 11th NFL season. And to note, Packers head coach Mike McCarthy was Frisco's offensive coordinator in 2005, which doesn't that sound like a long, long time ago?
I just love the fact that anytime we play San Francisco, you have to remember that Mike McCarthy was the guy that was like, I'm not picking that Rodgers kid. I'm going to go with Alex Smith instead.
And Alex Smith is actually still doing very, very well as a Kansas City Chief, coincidentally enough. And this is the part, when I read it in the dope sheet, it took a minute to sink in because I'm still can't grapple with this, that the Niners have a new head coach, Chip Kelly, formerly of the Eagles and before that the Oregon Ducks. His record in the NFL is 26-22. He's 0-1 in the postseason, which bodes well. Have
we aged that much already that I remember Chip Kelly as a player and now he's a coach?
Time marches on.
Man.
It's Doug Peterson's a coach of an NFL team. Wasn't
That's
he just
true,
on
too.
the sidelines with Brett Favre? I guess it was a while ago. And this is Chip's fourth NFL season and his first as the Niners head coach. This is the Niners' 18th head coach overall.
Wow.
And again, find the full dope sheet to the Packers-Niners game in our show notes at PackersFanPodcast.com/108.
Well, here's why I think that we're going to win this week. Now, Cap is supposedly back, but he just came back this week. So I think we're still going to see Blaine Gabbert take the helm. And Blaine Gabbert did not have such a great game last week. He was, I would say, abysmal is the word that comes to mind. But the third and fourth stringers actually had a pretty decent game. So, I think from that perspective, if we get out to a fast start again, control the tempo, get the time of possession up there in the first half, I don't think we're going to have any problem because there's no help when it comes to the running backs of the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, Carlos did break a 20-yard run and scored a touchdown last week. He was good, but the rest of the running backs that came in after him, which I'm sure we were not going to see Carlos most of the game, were not impressive at all. So I think that'll be really, really great to be able to have the defense maybe stop some runs, get a little confidence up, because even if Blaine Gabbert or those backups could throw to the wide receivers, DeAndre White was the team's best wide receiver, and he's trying to make the team. So,
oh my,
that tells you a little bit about the wide receiver situation there in San Francisco. But the other thing we have to keep in mind, though, from like the things that we have to look out for, they have a pretty decent offensive line. Gave up just 1 sack and helped the run game do get to a 5.1 yards per carry average last week. And so that offensive line is going to be a test for our front seven. And I really am going to be keeping an eye on that, because if the front seven can actually make the plays against a pretty stellar offensive line, which I think this is the first one they've run up against in the preseason, that'll be pretty decent. I think that'll be a good telling sign of how we're going to look for the rest of the year. But more importantly, the defensive backs, Eric Reed picked up the Broncos starting quarterback Trevor Seaman early in the game, and then Kenneth Acker picked off Paxton Lynch. So we got to be careful. Those defensive backs for the San Francisco 49ers are a little pesky, so we just got to make sure we have good, accurate throws and run our routes very well.
And keep the Niners fans out of the game. I'm sure we're going to see a fair amount of Packers fans in the stands as well. And lest any 49er diehard fans try to bring up, remember in the playoffs a few years ago when Colin Kaepernick ran all over the Packers?
Well, my street drum band is going to be there for sure, right?
Yes, he will.
I don't want to work. Just want to bang on the drum.
Da-da-da. I don't think we're going to get a repeat performance of Colin Kaepernick running all over us.
No, I definitely do not, especially with our defense this year. That is not going to happen. It's exciting. Game day's almost here. Friday night at, what is it? All I know is it's going to be really late here, so I hope you're manning the Twitter account this week.
We will be live tweeting on the @PackersFanPod Twitter account yet again, interacting with you. So please go ahead and send us @messages as well. Tag us in your comments and things like that. But yeah, it's going to be a late game for anybody back east. And the one thing about preseason is I cannot keep track of the fact that some games are on Thursday, some are Friday, some are Saturday, some are shown 2 days after the fact on the NFL Network, and because they can't show them all live. So it's kind of confusing. It's going to be so awesome when the regular season gets here and we can get down to Sunday games, some Monday games, some Thursday games, and then, basically that's it till the playoffs. Playoffs?
Yeah. Well, and I don't think the Packers schedule is any easier this year to remember than the preseason, because we got Sunday night, Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday afternoon. It's all over the map this year.
In other words, all of the networks that carry NFL games want to showcase some Packers games.
Absolutely, especially in Jacksonville, because they sold out the stadium.
I am still blown away.
Hashtag just saying.
Hashtag lots of green and gold.
Hashtag 9th home game.
That's my favorite. Well played, Troy. 9th home game. If we can just battle through the humidity, we'll be good to go.
No problem at all. Well, I'll do it for this week. Reminder, the Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast is not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. However, now is the perfect time to make that happen. Send us a note, media@PackersFanPodcast.com, if anybody out there can make that happen. Also, don't forget to become one of the Packers Fan Podcast faithful by visiting PackersFanPodcast.com/support to see how you can help make your podcast even better. And please be sure to tell all of your Packer friends about the podcast.
And while you're in the remembering mode, remember to listen to us on the go with our new free Packers Fan Podcast apps for iOS and Android, presented by theticketking.com. Don't get sold out of your next Packers game. Visit PackersFanPodcast.com/tickets for all the details. And all season long, follow us on Twitter @PackersFanPod, as well as my personal Twitter account. I'm @Wayne Henderson.
And me, I'm @Troy Heinrichs. Be sure to like us on Facebook as well. Just visit PackersFanPodcast.com/Facebook to join the community.
And keep this URL handy all season long, PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback to get your thoughts in. Let your voice be heard. Keep the conversations going online, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, and any other place you can think of, because we're going to be back with more preseason Packers coverage coming up next week. But until then, thanks for listening to this episode of your Packers Fan Podcast.
Remember to subscribe in iTunes and leave a review, and continue to support us here at the podcast. Now warm up your voice, because it's preseason. Get ready for regular season. Let me hear you with a Go Pack Go!